Down the corridor, another chapter remained unwritten. I rapped on the door at its end. The hotel was serene. The majority of guests were yet to ascend the stairs from dinner. I traversed 3 hours to catch my wife unexpectedly at her conference. She hadn't responded to my calls all evening, leading me to suppose she would be in her room waiting. The door cracked open a little. Her superior stood there, disheveled in creased trousers and an askew shirt. Initially, he remained silent, merely studying me as if I had intruded on an enigma he was struggling to comprehend. Then her voice echoed from within the chamber, querying, "Who's there?" She seemed calm, even drowsy. He didn't respond to her. Instead, he continued to scrutinize me, wearing an expression I couldn't decipher, not remorseful, not startled, more like deliberating on his subsequent actions. I chose not to probe or force my way past him. Instead, I stayed put, hearing the soft laughter emanating from behind the door, likely due to her phone calls. He retreated, closing the door behind him. I spun around and resumed my walk along the corridor. My hands remained unwavering, my respirations were regular. As of yet, I felt nothing abnormal. A peculiar sense of foresight was all that I experienced. It seemed as though I had already read the final chapter of a book. By the time I reached the elevator, my resolution was firm. For about 20 minutes, I sat in my car parked in the lot, the engine idle, the windows misting up. The scene outside depicted people returning from the main building, their laughter echoing, drinks in hand, discussing presentations and team-building activities. I contemplated re-entering, facing them, forcing her to clarify what I'd just witnessed. Yet I already understood. We had been married for 6 years. The past 18 months she had changed. More meetings, longer nights, secretive phone calls in another room. I reassured myself it was merely her career advancement. She was rising, gaining recognition, building connections. I operated a modest camera and lens repair shop, focusing mainly on vintage equipment. Paid for necessities, yet unimpressive. She once admired my manual labor, repairing items thought irreparable. 2 years ago, she ceased expressing that sentiment. I unlocked a travel app on my phone, found a morning return flight home, purchased it. Then I phoned my friend Danny, fresh from his divorce 3 years prior. He answered swiftly without inquiry regarding my reasons. I sought refuge at his place for a few days. At a motel 6 miles distant along the highway, I checked in. The room reeked of disinfectant and aged carpet. On the bed's edge, I sat, staring blankly at my phone. She remained unaware of my presence, neither texting nor calling. Then my device vibrated. It was her message. "Hey, darling, long day, going to sleep, miss you?" I chose not to respond. In the dawn's light, I exited the motel and drove immediately to the airport. The flight was scarcely populated. I seated myself by the window, observing clouds drift beneath me. Upon landing, I headed directly to the apartment, which seemed altered, smaller, almost like a first-time sight. Brewed coffee sat at the kitchen table, her possessions scattered around, magazines on the counter, shoes near the entrance, laptop charging on the couch. I had always considered this place as ours. Now it merely felt hers. Initiated packing, filling one duffel bag with clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and some tools I kept at home. Moved deliberately through each room, collecting only items that belonged to me. Avoided haste, refrained from slamming anything. Calmly deconstructed my portion of the life we had constructed together. Upon completion, I stood in the living room center, taking a final look around. The lease was registered under her name, an arrangement she had insisted on during our move-in, stating it benefited her credit. I never voiced any objections to that decision. Collected my keys and exited the apartment. At Danny's place, deposited my luggage in the guest room and extracted my phone. Opened the browser. I looked up divorce procedures in our state, found out I could initiate it online. I completed the forms that night. 2 days later, she called 5 times consecutively, then started texting about my whereabouts, missing items, and current situation. I was at the workshop repairing a 1970s Leica brought in from an estate sale. The phone vibrated continuously on the workbench near me. Danny had advised against responding. Let the documents convey the message. However, she persisted. By noon, she appeared at the workshop. I heard the doorbell and glanced up. She was standing by the entrance, still in her work attire, with her hair pulled back and a tense expression. She said we needed to discuss something. I put down the Leica and wiped my hands on a cloth. I told her there was nothing to discuss. She claimed I had vanished without any explanation, just packed up and left. I stared at her for a while, then informed her of being in his room. Her face remained unchanged initially. A fleeting hint of something, perhaps contemplation, could be detected, as if she were choosing which tale to spin. She asserted it wasn't what I assumed. They were merely discussing. He supposedly had papers she needed to assess before the following meeting. I pointed out it was 10:30 in the night within his hotel room with his shirt hanging loose. She hesitated, then chose her words cautiously, claiming I was being excessive. I shifted my gaze towards the workbench and picked up a lens. I informed her divorce papers were being submitted and she'd receive them shortly. She departed from the store without another utterance. I resumed working on the Leica. My hands remained steady. The lens slid into place as expected. I meticulously cleaned each part, as was my custom, but my mind kept returning to her words. I was overreacting. It was just documents, just talking. I knew what I had witnessed. That night, sleep evaded me. I found myself replaying a specific incident repeatedly in my mind, her boss standing in the doorway, shirt untucked, and the expression on his face. Her voice from within the room was relaxed and comfortable. At around 2 a.m., a memory resurfaced. Her iPad was still in my car. She'd left it there after our dinner last month, and I had planned to return it. It was kept in the glove compartment. I ventured out to the parking lot, retrieved it, and found that we shared the same cloud account. Her messages with him synced automatically. I opened their conversation. A series of messages dating back 5 months appeared. Initially, they were professional, meeting times, client updates, deadline reminders. However, as time passed, the messages grew longer and became more personal. They discussed post-work plans and shared details about their private conversations. Inside jokes, which I didn't understand, also appeared in their exchanges. As I continued to scroll, a message from 3 weeks ago caught my attention. She had sent him a photo of herself smiling. The angle of the photo was intimate, not something you'd share with a workmate. His reply was simple, "Miss you." I found myself fixed on the screen for an extended period. It wasn't a mistake, it wasn't a one-night stand. It was calculated, prefabricated, ongoing. I switched off the iPad and reclined on Danny's couch. Now I knew the truth of the situation. The following morning, I made a decision that I may have regretted later. I took snapshots of the messages, every single one, saving them to my phone. Afterwards, I wiped the iPad clean and returned it to my car. Danny noticed me doing this while we were having coffee. He asked about my work. I told him I was simply preparing for the divorce proceedings. He nodded, understanding not to pry further. The divorce documents were submitted that very afternoon. I received a confirmation email at the garage. It seemed odd to see it in black and white, petitioner, respondent, irreconcilable differences. I didn't inform anyone except Danny. I kept quiet on social media. I haven't contacted my family. Instead, I've been engrossed in work. I kept a low profile, waiting for the court decision. It took 3 days. She phoned me 16 times within an hour, but I didn't answer. Then she appeared at the store again, this time agitated. Before I could focus on anything else, she started talking. She accused me of insanity, claiming I was throwing away 6 years over nothing. She admitted to making a mistake, but insisted it meant nothing. I asked her about the mistake she mentioned. She fell silent, gazed at me, then said she shouldn't have let me witness that situation. It appeared wrong, she said, but not what I assumed. I informed her I had seen the messages. Her expression turned vacant, not startled or guilty, just calculating how much I knew. She asked about the messages. I remained silent and merely looked at her. After a breath, she suggested we could resolve this issue by seeking counseling. She even offered to quit her job if that's what I desired. I informed her that I desired no offerings from her. For a minute, she remained stationary before departing. I bolted the door after her and switched the sign to closed. My hands trembled then. 17 days later, I secured a studio apartment 6 blocks distant from the store. It was cramped, with only a single room featuring a kitchenette and a shower barely accommodated within the bathroom. However, it was mine. I signed the contract and moved in immediately. Danny lent a hand in transporting my belongings upstairs. We spoke sparingly, merely shifting boxes and rearranging furniture. Upon completion, he proposed buying a beer together. I declined, preferring solitude for a while. He acknowledged and departed. In the vacant apartment, I sat on the floor, surveying the blank walls, unshared furnishings, and no traces of my past life. It felt appropriate. The divorce proceeded without hindrance. She did not challenge it nor quarrel over any possessions. As the flat was in her name, she retained it. We had no children. We only have a joint bank account as our mutual asset, which we both equally manage. Her lawyer delivered the necessary documents. I swiftly signed and returned them. I assumed that would be the final act. However, a week later, I received a strange message from an unfamiliar number. It was her superior. He suggested we meet to discuss matters I didn't fully comprehend. He mentioned that I was unnecessarily complicating the situation. In a moment of poor judgment, I sent him a screenshot. This screenshot contained one of their messages where she had shared a picture and he had replied, "Miss you." I added 2 ominous words beneath it. Stay away. He didn't reply immediately, but the following morning my phone rang. It was my wife crying. She claimed he had ended their relationship. She asserted that this was all my doing as he found the situation too complex and unwanted the drama. I remained silent during our call. 6 weeks passed without another word from her. The divorce concluded unceremoniously, void of court appearances. Only signatures and a mailed, stamped document were required. I stored it away in a drawer at the store and returned to work. Business remained consistent. There were enough clients to maintain the electricity and projects to occupy my days. I often worked into the night, dined at my workbench, and dozed off while watching old films on my laptop. It wasn't an unsatisfying life, merely tranquil. Danny extended invitations a few times to bars, dinners, and even a baseball game. I attended once or twice, but mostly remained homebound. Over time, his invitations ceased. I believed I was managing well. Then one evening in the late spring, as I walked from the shop, I spotted her. She stood outside a coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment. Her appearance had changed. She appeared thinner and sported a shorter hairdo. Engrossed in a phone conversation, she looked worn out. Crossing to the opposite side of the street, I watched her for a minute. After ending the call, she entered the establishment. Observing from the window, I noticed her purchasing an item with cash, proceeding to a solitary table in the corner of the cafe. After waiting for roughly 5 minutes just observing, a part of me considered approaching to inquire about her well-being, but I didn't. Instead, I walked away. Upon reaching home, I sat on the couch and realized an unusual sensation. I no longer felt angry or betrayed. Instead, I felt nothing but emptiness. The next day, I received a text from an unfamiliar number. It was her. She'd acquired a new phone and was moving out of the city, starting fresh elsewhere. She expressed remorse for everything. I scrutinized the message 3 times before erasing it without replying. Summer passed with me continuing my work, repairing cameras, conversing with clients, and paying rent on time. The predictable routine remained unaltered, and I made no effort to modify it. Danny began dating someone new. She visited the shop once, being pleasant and asking insightful questions about the cameras. Appeared genuinely interested. Following their departure, I recognized that I hadn't contemplated my ex-wife for several weeks, which felt like advancement. In July, on one afternoon, a woman entered the store with an antique Nikon. She mentioned her father had utilized it extensively and wanted to ascertain if it could be repaired. I agreed to examine it. We conversed for some time. She inquired about the cameras displayed on the shelves. I detailed the origins of some of them. She chuckled at a story I shared about a customer who'd presented a camera he'd discovered in his attic. Before she departed, she asked if I fancied having coffee sometime. I agreed. We met the subsequent week, discussed for 2 hours. She was an instructor, had recently relocated to the area, was acquainted with few individuals yet. The interaction was straightforward and unforced. There was no tension. We began dating, nothing substantial. Merely dinners, films, strolls around the neighborhood. She never inquired about my background, and I provided minimal details. She mentioned casually that she had experienced a tumultuous separation a year ago. I gave a nod indicating comprehension. One evening in August, we were having dinner at her residence when she inquired if I was well. I affirmed, stating I was fine. She scrutinized me for a moment. Then she expressed concern, mentioning I seemed detached occasionally, as though lost in thought. I was unsure of how to respond. She placed her hand on mine across the table, assuring me that she wouldn't depart. She added that I didn't need to conceal my feelings. Upon seeing her hand touching mine, I felt a shift for the first time in months. I divulged everything that night piece by piece. Details about the retreat, the door opening, the messages, the divorce, and how I left without looking back. She listened attentively, refraining from interjection. She didn't offer counsel or attempt to mend things. She merely allowed me to speak. When I had concluded, she inquired if I regretted my actions. After contemplation, I told her no. That I made the only decision I could tolerate. She nodded in agreement, stating she understood. After that encounter, we continued crossing paths. Life became smoother. I began experiencing improved sleep and allowed people back into my life again. Danny observed this change and commented on it. He remarked that I seemed different, lighter somehow. I didn't dispute his observation. One autumn Saturday morning, while opening the shop, I spotted someone across the street, my former wife. She appeared as she had outside the coffee house several months prior. Exhausted, yet not engrossed in her phone this time, simply standing and watching. I paused in the doorway, locking eyes with her for a brief moment. She neither waved nor approached. Instead, she turned and walked away. I returned to the shop, locked the door, and resumed my work on the 1968 Pentax camera I'd been restoring. a stunning piece that merely required cleaning and a new light seal. After an hour, I received a text from the woman I had been seeing. She inquired if I desired to join her for dinner that evening. I composed a reply, then paused. I scrutinized my phone for a protracted instant, contemplating all that transpired, all I'd relinquished, all I'd acquired. I tapped the send button. I attended the dinner that night. We prepared pasta with vegetables collectively, nothing extravagant. She played music and we navigated her modest kitchen without colliding. It seemed effortless, comfortable. Following dinner, we perched on her couch and she questioned me about the woman she'd spotted outside my store. She'd driven by earlier and observed someone standing there observing. I disclosed it was my former spouse. She inquired about my well-being. I affirmed that I was fine. She did not pressure. Instead, she leaned against me and we remained silent. Late that night, I navigated home to my studio apartment. I parked on the street, ascended the stairs. Inside, I prepared coffee and sat by the window. The city lights extended below. Everything seemed identical as it had 9 months prior. Same buildings. Same streets, same sky, yet I felt altered. I departed from a marriage without a confrontation, abandoning everything in a single night. Before she could clarify, apologize, or implore me to remain, I submitted the divorce papers. Some might claim I surrendered too quickly, that more effort should have been expended, that the struggle for our union should have been fought. But I understood what I had witnessed. I deciphered the significance of those messages. And I knew I couldn't inhabit a dwelling constructed upon such a foundation. I drained my coffee and put the mug aside. Tomorrow I would open the store, repair cameras, converse with clients, perhaps cross paths with her at lunchtime. Life would persist in its progression. I extinguished the light and retired to bed. The apartment was silent. The linens were pristine. The space belonged to me, and that sufficed. Kindly read through my narrative until the end. Express your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more unspoken tales yet to unfold.